Yeah, the market humbled a lot of people, that's for sure. When the market crashed down hard, I feel like a lot of people got resentful, you know what I mean? For sure, for one reason or another. I think everybody did at one point, to be honest. I used to get so annoyed with buyers, like you said, and it just makes you, the sales end of thing I still hate to this day. Yeah. I hate it.
No, because nobody will ever fully appreciate what went into it.
But like being a grower for guys like us meant you did everything. I was a business that where I I was doing the labor, I was doing the packaging, I was doing the sales,
transportation,
accounting, I was doing the every step, right? Single source. That's what people refer to, single source, right? It's like you're doing everything. You're trimming it, you're bringing it, you're accounting for it, you're packaging it, you're stickering it, you're doing everything.
You're losing sleep for it, you're suffering.
That was the caregiver way, or just the outlaw mentality of growing back in the day. When you were delivering a bag, it's like you said, you arrive on site, you put in a shit ton of effort, drove it states illegally, did all this to get paid, and then have somebody be like, I gotta pay you 100 less a pound. It's like, okay, we're only talking $1,000. There's 100 pounds, right? Or whatever, $10,000.
It's a sentiment.
It's just the principle. It's like, no, really?
Made me feel like I didn't have good homies with me. Like I thought I had a really good relationship, good trust going on. I was like, oh, you respect me for what I'm doing. You respect everything I just put into this. You'll pay me for it. And it's like, oh, turns out you actually don't.
No. Unfortunately, it's just a business to a lot of people.
Made me hate middlemen.
Yeah, the business side of this all can get really frustrating for me. Like the numbers side. The numbers side, man, it can get really frustrating for me. I try not to get caught up in all the numbers and the math. A lot of guys do clown math. You know what that is in this game, right?
No.
Oh, dude, you ever see guys stare at the sky when they walk, when they see their homie with pounds, or they see a new room and they're just staring at the sky, calculating numbers and how much they're making and
how much can I extort?
Bro, I mean, it's just they do this clown math in their head about how much everybody's making. They assume that they know everything that's going on, and it's money, root all evil. And there's a lot of money in this industry, so throwing around attracts a lot of very selfish people. You know what I mean?
I think that's
just in it to grab whatever they can real quick and dip out. We've seen it with multiple different products and companies and third-party companies over the years in cannabis, and on the streets on that end of stuff too. But
I think that's a big part of why it kind of feels like a lot of the passion's been killed.
We can chop it up and say it a million different ways, but that's just part of like commercialization. You know what I mean? It's becoming a commercial commodity. It's not something that's illicit and hard to find now. It's not. You used to have to search for a good bag of weed in back in the late 90s, early 2000s, where I was born, where I was from, and you didn't just go wherever and just pick up whatever, a bag of weed, 35 million different flavors, and when you got something, it was fucking special. It was fucking fire, because the guy that was doing it at that time was putting a lot of risk in. You know what I mean? I mean, if you were growing pot back then, you were taking a big risk. Nobody took risks. Nobody are taking as many risks today as they were back then. The risk was a lot higher, and the reward was higher. You're getting paid more, and the weed was fucking fire, because the guys that were doing it, that were taking that risk, cared. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Great to get back to that again one day.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's still pockets. I mean, I got a pretty good crew, like in our pocket. Like and that's like pretty extensive, like just with our buyers and the people that we fuck with, and like the shops and the smokers, and you know what I mean, like the connoisseurs or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
I feel like we got a pretty good there's pockets that are still fucking always gonna care. I quit growing for money a lot of years ago. That shit. I mean, I upgrade everything. I'm always trying to make the weed better in one way or another, you know. Try to take care of the people around me too, you know. And that's just how it's kind of always been though, you know. Like in a normal business, you don't make the returns that you do in cannabis even on a bad day. So, you know, I try to, with those extra margins, I definitely try to not flinch at like making facility changes and like paying people properly is one of them for sure. But also demanding and finding the right people, you know what I mean? Like, you know, people that have good attitudes and got a good set of shoulders, you know. It's hard to find that out here too.
Trust.
Yeah, just people that still work. That this isn't like, I don't know, man, maybe it's just in Michigan. There's like this aura around growing where like really unqualified, uneducated people think they're worth a lot more than they are.
I think that's everywhere, man.
Maybe it is. I may be definitely biased, or maybe speaking out of bias there for sure. But yeah, the industry's definitely, I think it's weighed on everybody at times. You know what I mean? Back to what you're saying. I think it's weighed on everybody at times. I know the ups and the downs and the swings in the market over the last few years, wherever you've been, especially the last 5 years, starting out west. I mean, I think a lot stabilized, more will stabilize though. We've been pretty stable on just prices and product and demand for a long time, you know, but we put in a lot of work to keep that there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Making upgrades, constantly hunting new strains, constantly on the hunt for new flavors. I mean, I'd say that, and it's not a good thing, but my partners and I mean, I bet you the most sleep we get in a night's 4 hours. That's on probably a good day. You know, we definitely work, everyone, hard. I mean, we have a small team and 16-hour days are pretty much a regular thing. Like that's like, if I get up at 4 and I'm home by like 6, that's like a really good day. Like 14, 16 hours. That's like a, you know, I'm happy. Or they're like tonight when I get home at like midnight.
Yeah, we're here at 10 o'clock right now.
But it's all good. It's kind of how it's always been though too. This plants don't ever sleep, you know. They don't ever sleep. They don't care what you have going on. They don't care that your, you know, kid's behind in school and needs extra attention, or you slept in, or whatever the case is. They don't care, you know. So they are super needy kids. So, and when you care, see, it's harder to get rest when you care about anything, I think, like about your occupation.
Yeah, when you got passion
really
for it.
Have passion. It's like, I honestly, I'm not even lying. I can't sleep a lot at night and I get up so early because I'm just so excited. Seriously.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, it is. And I'm just excited about the things we're doing as a team and where I've got to see people around me go, and I've got to help build a lot of people up, you know, and that's like, you know, that's, again, it's to find the passion and the pockets in the industry that feel you know what I mean? And I definitely got guys out there that inspire me, and guys I watch that are pushing, doing the same stuff, and you know, so I wake up most days, I mean, just ready to go, you know. We work hard, but it's so full of passion. I'm surrounded by passion, you know what I mean? Everyone around our circle we love this shit. So that is what it's all about. You know, if it wasn't fun anymore and I didn't have that want to wake up in the morning, I definitely wouldn't be doing it. You know, I could shut any of my buildings down at any time and at this point and just take a break, you know, honestly, you know, but
That's how you know you're doing the right thing, though.
Yeah.
You haven't lost it after all this time.
Yeah.
You know, you're doing something right there.
I'm trying. So
You're definitely putting the effort in.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there's a good scene here in Michigan, though. There's a lot of good growers in Michigan. There's a lot of caregivers that are in the legal now, you know, and you know, we all grew up growing together in different parts of Michigan, and it's becoming more competitive. I think as as a state, we're still very far behind West Coast, just in technology and tech, and quality of flower, smokability of flower. I think we're still a little ways off, but I like that, you know what I mean? It's always that process of, the Athena perfect run, right? I'm always like, every run for us, we're just so
chasing.
And we're chasing, it's just like fucking chasing the dragon, man. Like chasing, and that's fun. Like I still love like grower talk. I got a couple homies that I talk with at least a couple times, 2-3 times a week, if not more. I was just talking to my buddy Nick on the way here, and grow talk, we're just talking bullshit and trying this light, trying that, messing around with this, messing around with that. Did you see, Quest came out with this new thing or whatever, you know what I mean? Somebody came out with something new or, and that's still too, like, just keeping those conversations alive is a good thing. Cause that's another thing it's always been about, the unknown and trying to strive to be better and making little tweaks to get better flower, stressing your plants differently environmentally. There's so many different things, dude. You know what I mean? And there's some fucking good growers in the state, man. We got a good core group of guys that'll be around doing this for a long time that are only gonna get better and better and better, guys and girls. So
seems like you all share that core concept of like, we don't know everything. And I think that's why you guys are still getting better.
I think that there's a lot of guys that came up about the same time. So there's nobody really out there that's just like, that thinks of this shit. I think we all kind of are, there's a lot of humble growers here that are like, we have fun and we pick at each other and we whatever. But at the end of the day, I think we all know we're in like the same space. You know what I mean? Like we're, somebody might have a batch that's so much better and then they fucking ain't got shit that's smoking for 3 months and then that happens to, or whatever, you know what I mean? There's always a little bit of ebb and flow to this whole thing.
That's what drives that innovation to keep going. Yeah. Once you think you know everything, you just stop.
You stop.
You stop progressing.
You stop. Even me, man, I keep an open mind. I'm always down to learn. I've had to change how I interact with, I have, like, if you're new to the team, you don't have a lot of experience, I don't need your opinions. You know what I mean? Now I'm here to listen. You know what I mean? I'm never going to shoot down an idea, but I've also had to get more. It's a good word. I have to get more efficient at like my use of time. You know what I mean? And if I need advice, I'm going to go to a professional. And where I used to try to either figure shit out myself, or a bunch of us that didn't really have experience would be trying to figure something out. Where now I am a little bit older and wiser. I'm going to go get a professional. I don't know anything about HVAC. Don't care to. You know what I mean? I'm going to call my HVAC technician. What else? I'm not that good of a builder. I'm just not. Like construction. Instead of trying to do anything, I'm going to call a guy in that knows how to use the tools properly and do the job, or whatever. I try to call in a little bit more professional help from time to time than I used to. So I want things done right these days.
You got them out there working right now.
We used to do, I've put up a lot of builds and I love it. I love being a part of it. I still like doing some things, but I want my stuff done right now by the professionals, so the guys that do it day in and day out. It's the same thing with cloning or, being in the flower rooms or being in charge of veg. It's like, I want people that are good at their profession doing what they're good at. That's how you get at scale. If you're going to grow at scale, in my opinion, meaning more and more, bigger and bigger and bigger, your team, as you multiply, better be that much stronger all the way through and skilled all the way, because if it's not, then you're just producing. And it's a pretty consistent thing here in Michigan. There's not a lot of operators that grow at scale that have good flower. I can't name any, to be honest with you. They got more than 500 lights, you know what I mean, that have dank ass fucking fire ass weed that everybody's waiting for. Why? Doesn't mean they're not good people and they don't care. They're just scaled too fast and their team wasn't skilled enough. I kind of look at things with like that NFL, like the Patriots, right? They went on that run for how many years in a row with Belichick and Brady, and it's like that team did that. was not just one guy, and it was a great head coach, and yes, it was a great quarterback, but they had some great linebackers, they had some great tight ends, they had a championship team, right? And that's what it takes, and unless you want to be a small batch single source grower, right? Meaning this is my only room, this is a big room for one guy, this is my everything, I'm gonna do everything in here from single source, start to finish. If you're gonna go beyond that, you have to have a strong team, very strong team, to keep that same single source type quality. And I think that's where a lot of scale and production weed there's a very fine line there. You can go to the dispensaries and see it. You go to, as soon as you get up to, anything that's being sold at a very low price point, not all, but I don't know anything that's being mass produced that's on that top tier shelf. You know what I mean? Like mass produced by just 1,000 light plus operators that throwing out fire, and everything's meticulously handled and cared for with love. And it's hard to do. I don't think I'm ever going to be up for that challenge. It's just not something I would ever want to do. Is be that big. I just don't need all that. Yeah.
You've got the same equipment that the commercial facilities have. You just scaled it down.
Yeah. We just don't have, instead of having 10 of these rooms in a building, we just have one room. Yeah, one room, one operator.
Really pay attention to it.
Pay attention to it, care for it, be in there day to day, touching, feeling. Like we've talked about, me and you have had conversations for years talking about just how all this awesome equipment that we all love, we tweak out on, we set up, I need all my equipment, need it all, but that doesn't mean that I spend any less time in the garden, right? Mm-hmm. It means I have some equipment to help me, you know what I mean? But it doesn't mean I don't have to swing the hammer anymore. Still have to be in the room, and that's something that we're big on, and that's kind of why we have more staff than we probably should for how many lights we have and all that kind of stuff. But it's because we want the places taken care of, and we want the plants cared for.
We should probably do an intro and get going through that. So today we're here with Dylan Knapp, also known as Mitten Master on Instagram. We've had the privilege of spending the last couple of days with you, hanging out. You've been showing us all your dope spots. We had a bomb-ass dinner last night.
Yep.
And right now we're actually sitting inside of one of your newest spots.
Yep.
You want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, man. This is just an old dinosaur, that we've it's been this particular spot's been around for a while. It's a caregiver spot, and just did a little facelift to it, took out the lighting grid, took out the old drain away pots that were on the ground, went to rolling benches just for more user friendly. Took out all the old lighting, went with our checkerboard that we're liking now in most of our rooms. Redid the airflow, and just did a facelift, installing the Connect. We had just a ton of different, 3 or 4 different controllers in here controlling various, pieces of equipment. Just got that all. Actually, the contractors are out in the other room, streamlining all that and hooking the final wires up. So looking forward to just sparking this thing back up, kind of under the current, the current conditions that we're liking as far as lighting and just parameters and stuff like that. So.
Just looking around here, though, it's honestly just wild, how different things are today compared to how they used to be.
Wow.
You literally turn this old barn into it's like a spaceship in here.
Yeah. We have fun. We have fun doing that stuff too, man. Putting money back in and always trying to look at advancements. And there's been a lot of, for us, the lighting thing has definitely been something we've been concentrating on. My group and I, my partner on the genetic side, my partner Mobile J, shout out to him. We started looking through, hard at lighting a few years ago, and HPS versus LED. There was an LED craze for a lot of years. Everybody got caught up on that, and I did too, and I think a lot of growers quickly realized that like it's good to a certain extent, and we weren't using a lot of the equipment properly. A lot of blown out clowny weed for a lot of years. And anyways, we started looking back at HPS lights, set up some HPS rooms again. Yield was a little bit, back down to normal. LEDs definitely produce a lot more biomass. Anybody that's growing under LED gets bigger yields because they definitely produce more biomass. Quality of flower, in my opinion, is just not quite there on the same level. So we started looking at mixed light. We definitely did not invent mixed light. I fucked around with mixed light years ago with CMH. Yes, CMH and metal halide and HPS. And a lot of times that was just out of straight up being broke and just throwing lights up because that's all I had. It was not of intention.
Same here.
So, anyways, we started looking at the positives of the LEDs and what they did bring to the table. And now, like, these are Think Grows, the tunable ones. There's a lot of tunable lights out there now. We chose this one. It's been working well for us. Traditional HPS lights. These are the Dutch lighting lights. Love Lux, love Gavita, but they're no longer around. So we had to start looking at like a reputable brand that was out now that we could, start putting up, and they're going to be around if we need something. You know what I mean? So, but I see a lot of people now over the last year, really 6 months, a lot more people going to mixed light with a lot of different combinations of LED and different manufacturers. And we think it's the best of both worlds, and for how we grow. Which is a little bit more, I'll say, like, I don't want to say old school, but, thinking about overall plant health and expression and flavor and quality first, as opposed to like yield and profit. Yeah.
Kind of bring it back to how it should be.
Yeah. Just really trying to like.
Good morals.
Yeah, good morals, but like good. We want we always want the best bags. We want the best. We look at with the best weed.
That's a pride thing, though.
It is.
It's not so much just I got to sell it. I mean, it is that.
It is. It's I want to. It's no. It's see. I always tell people when I got good weed, I don't sell weed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It sells it. It sells itself. When I got bad weed, now I gotta put on my selling cap. Start calling people, calling the shops. Hey bro, I got this deal for $1,200, if you want, blah, blah, blah. When I got that fire, I just sit back and I'm like, who's gonna be blessed enough to get the phone call that I got weed? You know what I mean? And then you get it out there and it sells. And anybody I know when they have fire fucking weed, it's the same story.
Pressure's off.
You know what I mean?
With a setup like this here, like so high tech, advanced, full blown commercial essentially. How does this compare? Like, I know we were just touching back in the day, like your old school trap setups.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to me. I was up on a ladder the other day here, like, zip tying and putting in some power cords, finalizing the lights this weekend by myself, and spent a little time in here because I like to reflect on I'm like, this is crazy. Like, I remember like building, there was always basements, plywood boxes. I used to think I was so cool. Like I'd go get sheets of 4x8 pressure treated and build these boxes. They started coming out with those grow boxes.
Yeah.
Back in the day, I was like, I'll make my own out of plywood, vent fans. Had insulation wrapped on the outside.
Panda paper
walls. The reflective tin, just straight up tin foil in the closet. And I used to think that was so cool. And and then the cool tube, the cooled tubes came out for the HPS, and I just remember like geeking out over this stuff back then. Only I was on my hands and knees in the basement, and now I'm standing in a building like this, and I'm just like, man, I'm blessed, dude. You know what I mean? To be able to grow in these bigger rooms with a lot of space, and because those memories were still a good part of. I mean, that was the first 5 years I started growing. I mean, just basements.
Most exciting time.
Yeah. I mean, everything was just so revolutionary and new. And plus, there was no information out.
Yeah.
It's not like it is today. I mean, you got companies like GrowLink and Athena, and I mean, most of these companies out now. A lot of information. I mean, there's information everywhere.
Yeah.
You can hop on Reddit. You can hop on YouTube. You can hop on Instagram. You can, you follow guys like me, there's tons of growers out here, tons of knowledge. You know, there's tons of Facebook groups. I mean, it's crazy. You know, there's consultants everywhere. You know, there's
you don't have to look hard.
You don't have to look hard, and you used to have to look hard. But I truly believe that there's something to that. You know, like when you had to look hard and you had to put in the fucking time and the work, like we talked about earlier, like the weed back then. When the guys because it wasn't easy. There wasn't just a book. There wasn't just things at fingertips. There wasn't just, I'll just do what he does. You actually had to like trial and error, and it was a lot of communication, and it was a lot of talking in person because you were too sketched out to talk on the phone. You couldn't go to the grocery store and talk to anybody. It was a very secretive thing, and work had to be put in, and there was a lot of risk. I just feel like the rewards were higher, and the guys that were actually doing that were really consistent, or you know what I mean, or like,
yeah.
And I don't know, maybe really shit sucked back then, smoking wise, and I wouldn't have liked it today. But what I remember of it, you know what I mean?
I'm right there with you.
Like, was I looking at every joint, making sure it was burning white ash and shit like I am now 20 years ago? No, I wasn't. I was smoking blunts, and I was rolling I was taking weed that was fresh and put it in the microwave for 20 seconds, trying to dry that shit out because I had no weed and I needed to smoke it. You know what I mean? I had no clue what that was doing. I remember putting shit in paper bags so it could dry out overnight quick, and now I would never do that. That's like my biggest fear is my weed drying out too fast, you know? So, but I think it's the bigger picture that like there was care and passion, regardless if it was right or wrong.
I mean, I don't know, I share the exact same memories when it comes to that. Like to me, I feel like it was so much better back then.
Dude, I used to get packs from Cali back in like the early 2000s, and like, they're just so loud. Like, you know, we used to get AK-47 and Trainwreck and fucking Jacket Rare, and man, you got a 1/4 ounce bag, like, you know, you're taking to school because you're going to your friends after out on Friday, and dude, you got it triple wrapped and saran wrap. It's in Ziplocs, it's in saran wrap. It's fucking, you know, I'm spraying, you know, perfume, cologne on my backpack. Yeah, man, and like you're putting it in the trunk, and you know, I mean, the weed was fucking fire. When you found good weed back then, it was fucking tight. It was tight.
I feel like it actually was. I don't think it was just a memory.
No, I think it was. I think it was too.
I think, you know, you would know this more than anyone. Do you think, like, with all the crazy crosses, breeding, you know, trying to find the next best thing, you think that's watered down genetics?
I think it's watered. Well, it's created a massive gene pool and some dilution on some stuff. I mean, I still prefer smoking OGs just because I think there's better flavor varieties out now, but like the effect for me on cannabis is probably one of the my biggest things. Like, I'm a big flavor guy, don't get me wrong. I probably hunt for flavor more than anything, but if I don't like the high on like something, like if it's like really, really strong power smoke, I only will smoke at certain times of the day. I'm very particular. I'm not just gonna smoke whatever, whenever. I'm not that. And I know a lot of guys that smoke, like they don't give a shit what they smoke. When they smoke it, if it's fucking smoking, they're smoking it. I'm very particular. I'm a daytime, nighttime kind of guy. It's got a lot of stuff to do, and I can't have, if the effect makes me feel groggy and I got a lot of shit going on, I can't have that, you know? So, but I feel like, you know, OGs for me have always been king. They get me right where I need to be. There's a lot of nostalgia from when I was younger. The effect is very clear and powerful for me. I like that. I think with a lot of the crosses, we've seen a lot of gene pools get diluted a little bit. I think recently you're seeing a lot of people go back to OG and stronger stuff to try to bring back some. But, you know, I mean, I breed a lot of stuff, and you know, you also got to breed at the same time to find new flavor. You know what I mean? I mean that's part of this. So yes and no, I guess. I
guess if the breeding's done right.
Yeah, if the breeding's done right, and you know they're selecting the strong keepers, and the gene pool is getting stronger over time, I think it's only a positive thing. Yeah.
Whenever you find a good cheese or skunk.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I miss the most of everything.
I got some UK, I popped some UK cheese, S1s. I mean, first time through, we didn't find anything. We got some more up we're gonna do soon.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking about crop steering and just yield maxing, all that, I feel like all the focus in the industry is on irrigation, drybacks, EC, which is super important. But I feel like a lot of people kind of just overlook environment, lighting when it comes to crop steering, and how that goes.
I would agree. I think that at the same time that the LEDs came out, a lot of information on crop steering came out. Most people I know, when they first started crop steering years back, especially when LEDs came out, was very heavy feeding, bulking heavy, high EC, high PPFD, maxing yields, grams per square foot. That seemed to be the focus. And that is still a big part of the focus out here with the production-driven guys. And I get it, it's a numbers game, right? I got caught up in that too, because I just didn't really know better. There's a lot of new information coming out. I was trying a lot of different things. But now today, I think my model around irrigation strategy is KISS. I keep it simple, stupid. I tried, I do things a little bit differently. It's very simple. It's very, very simple. I'm more focused on and invest more money and time into the environment,
That's what brought this up, is I'm looking around, I was kind of thinking about that today. Everything for irrigation, you got all this crazy stuff in the room here, but all we do is one valve. That's what's controlling irrigation, whereas you've got an entire roof above us with equipment of all different sorts, for environment and lighting.
And the lighting is, again, we've found more advancements in lighting and more importance in lighting over the last 2 to 3 years. Three was the transition period started, probably about 2 years of trial now. For us personally, on just like overall quality to yield, where we're finding a good middle ground, where we're getting the quality that we want and the yields that are acceptable, right? And in this market to keep pushing forward. Yield dilution is a real thing. We all know that. We see a lot of stuff that's pushed over that line, and the lighting has a lot to do with that, we found. That's been a big thing. Outfitting our rooms the right way, having the proper amount of DHU, proper amount of cooling, staging it properly, having the different zones, staging everything has been huge for us. Having the proper controllers, getting everything streamlined. At one point, dude, I had like 9 apps on my phone that I'd have to check every morning. It was ridiculous. I had YZ cameras, I had, what's that other thing that company makes? A lot of homeowners, the pulse meter, the Trollmaster, the GrowLink irrigation controller, it's just app after app we had to check, and getting away from that and streamlining for us was an important part of like dialing in the environment.
Yeah.
It's hard to dial in an environment when you got that many components like spread out. It's tough.
You dial in your environment too, because we've been on the phone where you're like, it's swinging and it's like 0.1 degree off.
We try to stage everything properly. So the old method of just like setting it at 70 and letting all the equipment turn on and off, obviously in big rooms where you have more than like one DHU or one mini split, right? We talked about that. You were asking me about your little garden and what you thought you should do in there. And I remember telling you, like, break the things down smaller, especially dehumidification, so you have different stages. Because those swings, minimizing swings is like, I feel like every time I get new plants in a room and I put like my football helmet on, I'm like getting ready for a game, and I'm like, all right, you fuckers, like, we're not swinging. Like, that's what I'm looking for. Like, I just need, if I can get 60 days straight with no swings, we just crushed it, I promise. Unless there was a catastrophic failure in the room. Like, we just keep things so simple and streamlined. From an irrigation's the easiest thing.
Yeah.
That is like the easiest thing. And the entire piece of, getting consistent clones to me is, a bit harder than irrigating a zone properly sometimes, right? When you have reliable equipment, and things are operating, the plants, the irrigation strategies are simple. You guys have got a great system that allows us to save stuff and repeat stuff and easily make changes to stuff. So I can save rules that work for certain strains. I can save my irrigation strategy for runts, maybe slightly different than tear gas, maybe slightly different than sure pie. Being able to just save all that and know exactly what that plant likes and how we ran it, and it's all very simple. It's simple stuff. Athena makes a great handbook. I was involved in putting the information in that handbook. If anybody out there is wondering how to grow weed, like just go get that handbook. You'll be good. And like I say that now, and like 20 years ago, I would have given my left like foot for that. Seriously, think about that,
dude.
If somebody could have like went forward in time and brought you back.
Which time I spent like looking up every forum that's ever existed for one fucking little thing. No. And then I still didn't get the answer I wanted. I had to go try it out myself anyway.
Yep. Yep. But keeping things simple, streamlining the rooms, put a lot more into the environment for sure. Environment's been huge. Being overdone on HVAC, overdone on cooling. We want to be able to take our rooms where we want them when we want them.
It's better to be oversized.
Redundancy. And again, shout out to Dave, Preferred Gardens. A guy that's taught me a lot in all these areas I'm speaking about. Just either in-person talking or just watching. If you take notice and watch guys that do a good job and crush, and you start looking at the fine details, I mean, you start to see a lot of similarities, right? How their rooms are set up, what they're doing, the quality of their flower, how their rooms are staged.
Level of care and passion going into it.
Yep, level of care and passion.
OCD.
Yep.
So,
yep.
But something you said there, it was like, I think the key point I was trying to drive home is like, you're like, when we go through a run and we don't have any swings for 60 days, that's when we crush. And that's the point I'm seeing the same thing too. It's like, I don't ever hear that from anyone. I only get questions on what do I do with my irrigation? How do I fix this? Like,
if you flip plants at the right size, you don't even need a P2. And that's honestly what we kind of go for. I try to flip. I don't want to be irrigating my plant 32 times a day into the night and fucking all. Have I had good runs like that? Yeah. I've had some okay runs. Is that a goal? No, that's not what I don't. I want to have good control of that root zone.
Keep it simple.
But I want to keep it simple. I'm okay with a couple bumps in the afternoon, but we're trying to flip at the right time where the cannabis likes to stay dry. Now you got to watch your EC levels, which may involve tapering your nutrients, things like that. Really watching runoff. Anybody that knows me has been talking to me about growing for years knows, all my homies, Dankum's Hunter, Max, you met him the other night, everybody. You call Max, you call me, I promise you, the first thing that we're going to say is, what's your runoff? You got a problem? What's your runoff? That's always the first thing I ask. That's going to tell me what's going on. As long as you're monitoring stuff like that and keeping it simple, that irrigation is the simplest thing in the world. It really is. For me, it's fighting everything else and making sure that we're staying in with environment, equipment staying running the whole time. I'm not getting swings. I'm a Nazi about being in your rooms at night. Nazi. All the guys that work for me know it. Me too. I mean, you can ask my wife, how many times I get up like a vampire out of bed at 12 o'clock. Something's not right. And I start going through my apps and I just got a feeling because there's something weird on a graph and I got to go make an hour trip just to go walk a room at night to be able to, because that the nighttime is like the unknown. It's always been like the unknown in the room for me. You know what I mean? It's almost, I don't want to say it's an eerie feeling, but like there's something about going in a room at night, like especially when you're like week 3, week 4 flower, and just standing in there. You know what I mean? Feeling the room, and like sensors, whatever my grow link's saying versus whatever my hygrometer in the back wall is saying, that's all fine and well. I need to, as the experienced grower, be in that room going, it feels like it says, on my skin. I'm huge on that. I'll make changes and calibrate everything based on how I'm feeling.
It's that level of experience.
Yeah, that's important. Yeah, I mean, outlaw growing for years back in the day. I mean, you moved at night.
Yeah.
You moved at night. You moved plants at night. You know how many fucking crazy trips in vans with big plants at night, moving plants from spot to spot. You always moved at night.
We were talking, or you were talking about, you guys have been experimenting a lot with checkerboarding, been doing that for a while. I know you guys have been doing spectrum tuning with the Think Grows. And I know you guys had touched on in the past in some other podcasts, I don't know, We the Growers, about the Emerson effect and all of that. Anything you want to touch on that? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a lighting expert. I just want to make that first and foremost. Somebody corrected me. I call it the Emerson effect. One of the other lighting whizzes corrected me. we're messing around with running some 730 nanometer at night. We're also messing around. There's a lot that you can do. You know, I'm not gonna sell these guys as lights for them. You know what I mean? But a lot of these tunable lights, there's a lot that you can do with them. There's more advanced lights than this light. I'm already looking at other stuff. I mean, there's a lot, but it hasn't been tested. That's the problem. Well, this shit's being tested. We got to get it, and we got to do the testing. You know what I mean? There's some stuff going on, but there's a million rabbit holes you can run down with this lighting. I mean, it really is, you know, the effect that it has on the plant. Think about the sun outside. You know, we talked about it on that We the Growers podcast. I mean, my buddy Jay explained it. I mean, you look at those plants in the summer underneath that sun outside with all that UV and the how lime green and healthy those plants are every petiole, and that's the closest we've got indoors to that same plant health. Plant health has been under mixed light. The only other time I've ever seen that same level of quality has been in a mixed light greenhouse, HPS, you know, true mixed light, you know, and honestly, it's not just, you know, tuning and all that stuff is cool. Trying to really dial in that you know, different expression on the plant, stress them, and it's also beautiful from a operational standpoint. I mean, you know, you come into a traditional. If this was a 50 light HPS room, I'm gonna need 3 times as many humidifiers. I'm smogging out the room. It's dry as hell at the beginning of flower, you know, because you're drying out the room with all the bulbs. And so we can checkerboard the room. We can turn all the HPS off when we're vegging, still hit 400 or 500 par down here, easy, on a 6.5 foot, 7 foot center with these LEDs. It's beautiful for veg. It keeps the humidity up. Doesn't cost us as much power. We're able to go more wall to wall, go on a little bit wider grid. The traditional 4 foot on center, wanting 1,000 plus ppfd, we just know now is clown. We don't need that, you know. We know exactly how far on center we want. We know how far from the deck up to the light we want. We know how far, what's our average height of crop. We know how much we want from the top of that crop to the light to give ourselves enough adequate, even airflow, you know, for this entire plant to breathe. So a lot of those things have been all discovered just through trial and error over the last 2 years, you know what I mean? And how that effect of light, both top and bottom, I mean, you got under canopies now and side lighting and this lighting, and you know, we're trying to properly light the plant from all aspects without overcooking it. Similar to cooking the fucking good steak like we had last night. You know what I mean? You can't blast it with 9,000 fucking ppfd from every angle. It's just that flavor of that plant is gonna be directly affected, I can promise you. It's like fucking putting a burrito in the microwave for 4 minutes when it calls it for a minute. It's gonna come out like fucking stiff. You bite into it, it's just like, you know what I mean? You know, and lighting is huge. Water, right? Your irrigation's important. Your feed, your environment, and your lighting, huge. And those all correlate together. We know that, right? It's like the perfect triangle. But the lighting advancements have definitely been huge. Not only from, you know, a quality of flower, but just easy use all the way around for us. So.
Oh, dope. Speaking, last thing I'll touch with lighting real quick is, I know you guys have been running under canopies.
Yep.
It's no secret, they obviously do something. They help, that's why people run them, that's why you continue to run them. You did point out something to me though that I found interesting that I don't think a lot of people take into account, is like, how do those under canopies affect your environment? And
they will break your fucking room if you aren't ready.
Yeah.
I mean, you're adding obviously you're running, you can do the math and the different types of lights, but most of them are 120 watts. You're using 2 of them per 4x4, 240 watts. You can figure out how many heating BTUs that is based on the size of your room. That's number one. It's adding heat, and it's adding it in a pocket underneath your table to where if you're not careful, you'll build up a good microclimate down there. That's number one. Number two, you are adding more mass, usually bigger plants, a lot more water and transpiration into the room, which definitely affects what's needed for equipment inside the room. This room will be outfitted with under canopies. That's why we have, you know, we have the appropriate amount of overages of DHU and cooling to support that, because you will need, you know, 40% more DHU on average, somewhere around there, you know, and I put 50% more than I would need on a standard room, you know, and then an adequate amount of cooling to cover that 50% more dehumidification, you know, on the spots that I can't do reheat and what else. So, yeah, they work. Everybody's using them. Obviously, more light is cool. We're playing around with, again, even light.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not about more. It's about I want a cooked bag all the way through. You know, I want my bag to be consistent. Somebody gets a pack from me, goes to the dispensary, gets a jar. I want them to crack the bag and everybody to be consistent. And I don't want to lose on the back end as the fucking grower that ends up with 10 pounds of smalls of discolored buds. You know, I want a perfectly cooked plant. I don't want to hit my plant from all angles. I'm gonna appropriately balance that underlight and overlight. We dim both a lot. We're not blasting at the same levels and pushing underneath, finding a happy median. Very strain dependent. I'll be the first one to say it. If you're messing around with tuning lights, if you're messing around with under canopies, get ready for herms. And that's something that nobody's talked about yet. And like, because not a lot of people are messing around with that. And maybe if they are, they don't have a lot of genetics because it's very genetic specific. But like, you're stressing these plants with shit that they've never seen, right? We're throwing light from every angle. We're fucking throwing reds in at night to shorten the crop life cycle. We're manipulating and steering. Certain genetics, I mean, they can't take it. You know, you're really gonna see in your portfolio or genetics, you will have some stuff that doesn't like it. And that's just a warning to anybody that's messing around with this stuff. Proceed with caution. Don't overdo, creep into it. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to be, there's something, one of the reasons we didn't even really want to talk about this at first, even when we did and kind of broke ice on a lot of these topics with lighting, is I don't want to be responsible for somebody fucking herming out a whole room and not being able to pay their mortgage or something, you know what I mean? I'm kind of careful with some information because I just don't, there's a lot of unknowns. I mean, we've done a certain amount of testing, but there's more to be done, you know what I mean? And it's the same thing with trying to tell some guy that's been growing in 10-gallon pots his whole life, hand water once a day to, hey buddy, we're going 16 to light Rockwell, you ready? You know what I mean?
Wait, what?
Yeah, and by the way, I got this program. It's just going to do it all for you.
Yeah.
What?
Trust the computer.
Yeah.
It's like, hold up.
So it's like easing into that with caution. You know, I've seen people go into growing in different medias and have similar problems. They're dry cycling, their plants are, go re-vegging and herming, and it's because they're just stepping too quickly into an advanced area they're not used to. So if you are messing, if you're hearing this and you're messing around with tuning, you're messing around with under canopies, you're messing around with all this lighting, just proceed with caution. You know what I mean? Ease into it, and monitor closely. Monitor.
Keep an eye out for those bananas.
Oh, dude, we have a couple people. All they do is, all they do is check for herms.
Wow.
Yeah, we got this girl.
It's that prevalent then, huh?
Yeah. We got a couple ladies that that's all because you can't take risks anymore. You have to be on every P and Q. Every I has to be dotted, every T has to be crossed, the entire run. At least that's the way we look at it. We look at it, we have different analogies we throw around. One of them is like the test score. You take a test, whenever you're taking a test, you start off at 100, right? Every time you get a question wrong, 2% off, another percent. That's the way we look at a run. We bring clones in. If they're healthy clones, we're still at 100. If we bring in bad clones, we're already at a 95. That's the best we can get. We have an AC go out, we just lost 5 more points. We fucked something up, let a zone dry back too far, lost another 3%. So you see where I'm going with this. Over a 60-day period, where am I gonna end out when I started 100 at day one? Am I gonna be still at 90s and the 90s at the end? That's a hell of a run. That's usually probably a 9 on the smoke. Team's crushing, everybody's happy, brokers are smiling. If I have a lot of instances, ACs are down. I got issues with this new reheat system I tried last time, and I love it, but it took me a minute to figure that out, and the room was all over the place. And so, you end up with a 79. You had a lot of issues along the way.
Yeah.
That's gonna usually directly reflect your prices, how the product is, not always, but I mean, it's that important. And a lot of times you're losing a lot of points on your overall score of that run due to how in check your fucking environment is, period. I mean, think about all the conversations we had over the last year as we started putting up a lot of these spots, working with you guys. I mean, we freak out over environmental stuff. You hear it from us. And it's because that's where the most crop damage happens, in my opinion. Swings, shifts, heat, too cold.
Dropping your score.
Yeah, just hindering the crops. You know, at one of my spots the other night, one of our rooms, my buddy made a newer guy I'm working with, you know, training and stuff like that. He made a change to the environment, forgot to change the heating. So heating's fighting cooling all night. So all of a sudden we go from having a stable environment at night of 76, 77, and 63%. All of a sudden we're 81, 50. And like, not a big deal with the crop, but how did it affect? I always ask, before I point out things, I always try to get newer guys to think. It's like, what else do you think that affected other than it just being a little hot and dry at night? He's thinking, I'm like, drybacks. Oh, fuck, you're right. I'm like, and I had to pull up the desktop. I'm like, go in the desktop, not just the simple graph of something on an app. I pulled up the GrowLink dashboard and went in and showed him, I'm like, you see, when this room spiked up to 81 at night, it was at 50%, you could literally see that entire room start drying back way faster than it was the night before. Direct correlation, right? You know, that those are the kind of things that we're watching for on a constant basis. Those simple things. If not kept, if we wouldn't have caught that, we're going night after night. It's getting too hot. Things are drying back too far. I'm wondering what. And then guess what? The next morning when we irrigated runoff, what do you think the runoff was? It was hot, way hotter than it had been. Why? Because we dried back way farther. So it's like good. You know, in the moment, I try to slow down and like use that as like training tools. Like this is
as long as they're learning.
For every reaction, right? You know the saying, and case in point, right there. So, and it's all those things though to me now that are affecting a crop. It's not, you know, all I need is a good clean nutrients. Shout out Athena. That's just, I need a good reliable controller system. I need a good reliable injection system. The rest of the work is on us to keep everything in check. That's all we're doing the whole time is just keeping all this in check. That's our job. That's what my job is. That's what to me, that's what a grower's job is, keeping everything in check.
Yeah.
And you got to know, and like we talked about this, one of the other spots, I can go in a room, any manufacturing setting, used to be no different when I was in food manufacturing. You listen to a room run, you know how it sounds. I can go in a room blindfolded, and if something's not right, I can hear it. That DHU doesn't sound right. There's a fan out. I instantly can come in and tell if we popped a fuse. Sometimes, you know, we'll pop a breaker, and some fans won't be on because they're attached to that outlet. I can tell instantly, just by something not sounding right in the room, you know? So I really try to push that, just using all your senses in the room too. You always got to be alert, like really alert, you know? And all this stuff is, you know, all this equipment, man. I mean, it's great. But like it's always, you know, you have to be on top of the equipment too that you're using.
Yeah, it's not going to do it for you.
You don't just install a system and never calibrate and just walk away and assume. No, like it's great. And that's going to help us keep all the equipment dialed in, but we have to be on top of it, you know, making sure that it's doing its job, you know?
So speaking of equipment, you were actually the first customer that got a Connect controller.
Yep.
Sent that to you, put it in one of your spots.
Now we're installing our third here, third one in the last year. It's pretty cool.
I was gonna ask, like, what was your deciding factor in keeping with that?
I mean, you know, so, well, me and you going back to the precision controller, you know, I mean, I think I was one of the first guys to get those. Me and you talked and made notes and having three-way calls with Sean and picking that thing apart for years, kind of slowly rolled into, and I like that platform a lot. we decided to first go with a Connect because of the platform. We like the platform, and I've got a lot of other spots on different, environmental controllers and whatnot, and we just really like that platform. And we like the idea of having everything in one central platform: lighting, HVAC, dehumidification, humidification, zone control, everything in one platform. That was huge for us. And the precision controller did a great job with all the irrigation. So being able to tie everything into a central location was great. Your guys' service was huge on that too. And so that's really why we went with it at first. And then when we got it in place, and which was a big step for some of the guys on the team who'd never used anything outside of a Trollmaster, a simple Trollmaster. But once they got used to it, and once it really helped us streamline, our daily overlook and logging, and being able to set everything up and zone everything properly, all the dehumidification, the cooling, and tie everything in, and watching that room run effortlessly really just made it easy to keep rolling that same thing forward. We're kind of in the business now of just streamlining. Like we found a layout that we like that's working well for us, and we're probably gonna stick with it for a while, and it just makes sense. And honestly, it's like we're not even putting this thing to half the use that it's capable of. I could be controlling way more with it than I am, but we like how it operates. We like the service along with it, and the features. Every time I talk to you, there's something new that I'm capable of doing with it if I want to. We've appreciated just the help with all the lighting and being able to tie in the stuff we were having problems with. I mean, just all that kind of stuff, being able to bring everything together has been big for us, So
we're glad to hear that.
Yeah.
One thing I was curious about, not curious, but we were talking earlier, you got these redundant mini splits back here, and then all your spots, I see a shitload of generators everywhere. And I remember last year you guys got hit by a tornado or something, and so you needed those. And I'm just curious, I don't see that very often. It's like you guys are fucking prepped. Something goes down. Yeah, we have split units for redundancy, just for cooling in case of power outage situations. We are in Michigan. We get massive summer storms and winter storms. We do lose power often out here, and again, you got to be prepared. Because you got a lot on the line. Any crop skips a beat, power outage, that's a lot of points off my score. Especially in that tornado, we were down for like a week. Still had a successful crop though, dude. We were on gas patrol for 2 days straight, and the team persevered and pushed through, you know what I mean? Because everybody cared, you know what I mean? Everybody cared. Nobody wanted to see that crop go to shit, so we babied it along and had a great run. It was a great run. So didn't fold on us. So yeah. All right. So before we'll get off hardware and all that, but before we do, last thing I wanted to touch on is something I really want your opinion on. You've used a whole lot of substrate sensors out there. You've done a shitload of R&D with everything. You've grown fucking absolute fire with all of them. So what's your opinion on that? Like, do you feel it's one is better than the other, or do you feel it's like these are all just tools? It's the grower. Like, what do you think?
So I've used everything from your original Acclima, to the new sensor that you guys have out now, to the Terrell's 12 over the years, to the one from Grodan. I mean, I've used quite a few. They're all great tools. I like the ones you guys have now. They work great. I really just monitor moisture content, and for my drybacks more than anything, I'm not too concerned with EC levels as I used to. I really been doing this long enough. I know where I'm gonna be at with the feed that I'm feeding, and then Athena's very consistent from the nutrient side, so I know when I'm feeding and I'm running a lot of the same strains now, or crosses off the same strains. I know how they're growing. So like everything's very consistent with the sensors I'm using now, and the other sensors were too, to a certain extent. I mean, if I had to replace a few here and there over the years, sure. I think I don't think there's a sensor that's like, oh man, this sensor just changed my life. because it read what, more accurate? I mean, what is that really doing for me? And I mean,
what are you doing with that info?
What are you doing? What are you doing with that information? You know what I mean? And like, again, I use those, like I look for, like, let's say a 50% dry back in early flower. I want to see it, a field capacity at 60 and dry back to 30. Does that mean because it says on the graph, I'm not going to go in and pick up those plants and make sure it feels right? Absolutely not. I want to make sure that my big thing is when I'm doing checks in the morning, when that plant's at 30%, if it's at 30%, reading on the sensor on GrowLink, and that's 50% of what it is at field capacity, and I know what a 1 gallon pot feels like when it's full, right? I pick that pot up and make sure that I'm like, yup, that's about right. That's off of a feel that I've acquired from doing this, picking up a lot of fucking plants. You know what I mean? So again, I'm calibrating that sensor to my feel. That's important, because depending on where you put that, or if some new person puts it in like that, or they put it in and then they take it out and then they put it back in, it may not be reading right. So we're big on just, we take runoff off the same plants that we have sensors in, so things are consistent. My runoff numbers are always really consistent to the core EC with the sensors reading, right? For what I want to see, it's very consistent. It's always a little bit hotter coming out of the bottom, which it should be, but it's consistent across all the zones. So, I mean, I guess I just been using what comes with the equipment I'm using. I've been happy, I've used Teros, I've used, like I said, a lot of different ones, and I can't say one's like ever steered me wrong, but it's a tool.
Yeah.
It's one very small piece. It's like saying, hey, how do you like that? Do you think that sensor makes or breaks your entire run? Well, I mean, it's a big part of it, but I also got hygrometers on the wall, and I'm gonna be in here and I'm gonna be feeling. And so, like, it's important, you know what I mean? And I'm adding more to the zones because I wanna monitor genetics individually now. Having a zone on a table with 100 plants on a table, I have one sensor, that's giving me a very small piece of the pie, you know what I mean? Especially when I'm chopping that zone up with different genetics. So, great tool. But I'm going to be feeling that and
that's
keeping that tool.
That's not what's making you a better grower. That's not what hitting your yields.
It's a good tool. Do I sleep better at night? Because when I wake up in the morning and have my coffee, I always go through my graphs. Okay, dry backs are about in check, dry backs. And the more you do this, again, everybody's got different feedback about all this different equipment out here. I mean, you see all the shit online. Everybody's got a feeling about this company or that company. And I've got homies that have had bad experiences with the company that I'm like, I've had a really good experience with them. A lot of people hate Quest. I've had a great experience with Quest. Never, and vice versa with Andon, let's say, or whatever. If you're happy with, if the product's been consistent, which this has all been very consistent. That's why we're doing the same thing on build out after build out after build out, because the results are consistent, and the consistency is what's needed to have a consistent end product. All the inputs, which is a substrate sensor, which is an environmental sensor, which is a DHU, which is an HVAC unit, which is a fan, all those inputs have to be consistent over and over and over and over again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well said.
So.
One thing on there that you actually talked with me about in the grow is that I found pretty interesting is like the relationship that you have with runoff and those sensors.
Yeah.
How you were basically saying like, look, I know, I get what a reading is inside my substrate. Let's just say it says 4 EC.
Yeah.
I'm checking that runoff.
And I know it's going to be around 6.
Yeah.
6.2.
And if you see something's off there, you will go in and make a change.
Yeah, 100%. Yep. And if I'm reading runoff and that EC is reading way too low or high, usually 9 times out of 10 it's loose or it's too low. In the block, it got placed a little too low. I'll usually pull it, recenter it somewhere else. And again, I feel too. I mean, I can tell you from a component standpoint, from a platform standpoint, looking at, like, let's say when I log into my GrowLink and I'm looking on the desktop at my dashboard, dude, I'm looking at 90% environmental. I glance at that like the irrigation side. You know how you got the different categories up top? I'm like always on environmental.
Well, it's because you keep it simple.
Keep it simple, and it's very consistent. I don't I don't do anything crazy. I'm always looking at environmental. I glance at the irrigation, make sure I'm good. Once in a while, I may go check something if it feels off, but we're in the rooms picking up those plants, doing runoff every single day. So like, again, that's one tool, and we check that against, I want to see every zone at 30% in the morning. That makes me feel great. I was bragging at dinner last night. I was like, Max, look, I'm lights off on 35% at every zone. Yeah, it's uniform. Does that mean I'm going to go in there and pick everyone up and they're going to all be, these all feel the same? Probably not.
But if they don't, you're going to make a change.
Exactly. So, all the equipment is necessary. I couldn't operate without substrate sensors. Like I could, but it's a tool that's helped me stay sane at night, check things from afar. If I get a bad feeling, I can look and, okay, I'm good. Dry backs are looking good. If I got to give it a bump shot because I feel something's off, I can do that from home. That's awesome. And I will do things like that, but it's just another small tool.
You still have your due diligence in there. You're still doing that work in the grow. Yeah. And that actually kind of brings me to my next thing I was going to ask is, like, I think what you do is fucking awesome with this, is we always have that issue with, you've got a big row like this, you're controlling everything off one valve, even if it's a monocrop, and you almost always have 15% that are too wet, 15% that are too dry, 70%, that's right around the median there. Mm-hmm. And I know you told me your strategy that you do with that. I thought that was really awesome, which is for the first couple weeks, when you're starting your new run, you will go in and pick up every single pot through there, and you will make manual adjustments, right?
So like you'll start identifying early on. You'll see the plants that are getting a little bit ahead of themselves, and anything that's too big or too small, we're obviously pulling out. Whether it's a really vigorous one, we'll pull back from mom stock. A weak little clown, we're just going to pluck off, and throw away in the trash. And as we get into flower, right, and things start stretching, we want to our whole goal the first week's to get everything like evened out. So there's a lot of pulling one dripper, leaving a dripper, pulling both drippers if it's staying way too saturated, maybe hand watering some plants that are drying out too fast and need an extra squirt. And again, that whole, and I know that, like, from a big scale perspective, that probably, there's probably better ways to do things, or just let them go or whatever. But that's part of keeping it craft, getting in there, that does make a difference. Setting the tone that first week of your plants on those dry backs is going to get you in that sequential P1 feeding every day, because plants these plants want consistency.
Yeah,
they
like
want
that circadian
feed, dry back,
rhythm,
bump, feed, dry back, bump, feed, dry back, bump, or whatever it is. And that can change as the plant, matures a little bit, but they like consistency. But when you're flipping smaller plants, especially in a non-root bound container, you got to get them roots to explode at the same pace. So it's just a little bit of, it's like a game of Tetris that first week. It's like trying to even this all out. And we'll move plants around that are too short. We'll do some quick shifts before we set trellis and stuff sometimes too, and really just try to set the stage nice.
And that all pays off though, because you were telling me, like, by week 3 or whatever.
Yeah, by week 2, really. I mean, we're on a consistent. We're on a consistent P1. Things are good.
Everything's level.
Everything's level. We're kind of just keeping it simple. Not doing, just kind of keeping the plant work little bits and punches and bunches, and trying to keep that plant drinking all the time and happy, and keeping EC levels in check. And honestly, man, it's simple. It's simple, but you have to be persistent, man. Persistency wins out in this game, 100%. You can be fucking great for 55 days. You fuck up for 5 days out of that 55, you probably just cost yourself a crop in this market, in this cutthroat market. If that shit ain't it's rough out here. You know what I mean? So you can be persistent to an extent, but if you're not on it all the way through, and that's why I'm a huge proponent of that. I preach that inside and out. You can be awesome and then take a couple days off and, just ruin everything you stayed persistent for, and keeping that mindset is huge with these crops, because, your bag's got to stand out these days, and it's you gotta hit it all the way through. I've never had a run where I haven't had a hiccup with something, whether it's a spike, whether it's a heat spike or humidity spike or power outage for 2 hours or something. A valve fails, the kink in my my whip going to my table, so it only got half a feeding because when I put the table back, there's always some little hiccup. Does that cost me a crop? No.
It lowers your score a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit sometimes. Sometimes they push right through it. You know what I mean? If it's not detrimental, but it's about staying on top of that. You know what I mean? All the way through. Being persistent.
Speaking of that bag appeal quality, that you're trying to push for in that cutthroat market, I see that, you're running cocoa at all your spots.
Yeah.
You did tell me an interesting thing about your opinions on cocoa and Rockwool and what you found. You care to share that?
Yeah, love Rockwool and cocoa both. I think they both have some benefits. For me personally, being on, and again, this is just my experience, and not everyone may agree. And I'm not the best grower in the world. There's a lot of guys that crush on Rockwool, but we've just struggled to get that full flavor over the years and shelf life in Rockwool. And again, I got a lot of guys, a lot of my friends that are probably watching this that grow in Rockwool. Your weed's awesome. That's just my experience, you know what I mean? And could just be I'm just better in cocoa. I keep it simple, and maybe that same strategy doesn't work in Rockwool as well. I don't know. At our facility, our facility out here, we did 2 rooms on 6-gallon or in 6-inch blocks, 2 rooms in 1 gallons for multiple runs in a row, back to back to back to back. Looked at shelf life, looked at terps, looked at flavor, looked at smokability, looked at bag appeal. Rockwool checked every bag, almost better than cocoa, except for just that flavor, which is huge for us. You know what I mean? They just seem to drop off faster, seem to be a little just light on flavor, time and time again. But again, I don't know everything for sure. And in this market, again, I want to stay with what I know.
Yeah.
So that's what I know. That's what works well for me. Again, I look around the industry at the guys that are pushing the needle. Most of them are in the same media, and so gives me a little comfort that I'm probably making the right decision, because there are benefits to Rockwool. It's so clean, dude. It's so clean. It's so easy to set up a room. It's easy to steer. It's great. It's just. Unfortunately, just a little flavor loss for me is really the key factor, in that decision. But we put in a fucking year of trial though before we made that decision. You know what I mean? And again, doesn't mean that the weed was bad. The weed smoked good, but in this market, we're looking for the best. Every little piece. Same thing when we're looking at lights. Same thing when we're looking at controlling systems. We want what we feel through our trial and error is giving us the best, right? So.
No, that's exactly what I was wanting to hear. So Athena, obviously that's what you're running.
Yep.
You love it. You do the R&D with it. You do all that. What line do you run?
Pro line. So I've ran obviously blended, ran that for years, did a lot of R&D with both, but I've always been a 2-part guy. I run a Lucas formula with Athena, so I just run the core and the bloom. That's just all I use for veg, flower, propagation, everything. It's just a Lucas formula. Tweak the ratio as you go through. Heavier in the core early on in veg and propagation, and tapering through. Following their feed chart almost to a T. No flushing, just running nutrients straight out. Tapering properly as we get through the crop, and just keeping it simple, man. Keeping it simple, super clean, consistent. I know every time I order it, the bag's going to be the same, and it's just reliable. I know that there's never going to be a shortage. I know that there's a warehouse and an hour from my house. That makes me feel good. All those things matter. I just ran out of fucking cocoa for a while, and I just source different kinds that I don't like, and I don't like that. I want the same thing over and over and over and over again. Yes, 100%. Yep.
So we've gone over, our upcoming set points and blueprints and things like that.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for the blueprint thing. To be able to store data on runs, and to be able to copy and paste that, take that blueprint and, hey, I want to go back to that run and just enact all those same environmental changes that we made as we went through. That's cool. Because a lot of times, if I'm not saving that on my own manual log, over years past, but damn, what did I do that one run? I swear I lowered my temperature down 3 degrees, week 4, I couldn't, being able to go back and log that and then have that blueprint to just enact that again, that's game changer. I like that. Yeah.
there any type of special SOPs you think could be helpful to viewers, or are you going to make them wait for blueprints?
Yeah. I mean, like, I think like SOP wise, man, like every garden's different. So like, you know, there's a million SOPs out there again, and there's the Athena handbooks full of them. They're all great. You know, I make tweaks to all that stuff, dude. And a lot of times it's room to room. It's not like, I mean, honestly, we have literally different rooms that have slightly different SOPs. Sometimes it has something to do with that room. You know what I mean? LED room, we have different SOPs, and we still have some LED rooms. You know, they're still good rooms. We like them. We're not going to change them. We can't change them because the power situation's slightly different. Our irrigation SOPs are super simple. You know, simple P1 feeding. You know, cloning SOPs are straight out of the handbook with Athena. Lighting SOPs, we just don't really have anything that like I'm even comfortable sharing because I don't want to put anybody's garden at risk, you know, to be honest with you. You know, there's a lot to learn there. I'll tell you that. There's a lot to play around with. You know, I don't have anything specific. I think the big thing with SOPs that I would say is I would urge people to define them per your garden, you know, and there's a lot of information out there to get good baselines on, and then develop your SOPs and log them, you know what I mean? Log those SOPs and then, you know, monitor changes that you have to make to that SOP and always continue to try to refine that as time goes on, you know?
Yeah.
So
I guess the last thing here is, if you had to give like one piece of advice to your viewers, to people listening to this, you know, just whether they're new, whether they're old heads, you know, doing this, what would it be?
I mean, I think as it pertains to like growing, I would keep it simple. I think that's like paramount. I mean, I see a lot of people, I get a lot of messages and the text messages and phone calls about people that are thinking that they can reach for this next thing that's going to make like their company or their product that much better, when really they just got to look inside their room, inside their team, inside their people. And that brings me to the other thing is try to keep passion. You know, the second that I don't have the passion for this, it's going to be directly reflected in the product. And the people that I know that the best weed out there, in my opinion, the best brands, those guys, you can see the passion gleaming off of them and their team, you know, and that is those two things, man, passion and just trying to keep it simple and have fun. We keep a light mood in the gardens. We try to keep things very light and happy. You know, this plant's supposed to represent freedom for a lot of us. You know what I mean? It's supposed to represent, it's supposed to represent that freedom from, you know, a lot of us from being outlaws for forever, you know, being able to do this legally. And so just keeping a light note in the garden, trying to be grateful, you know, and these plants feed off your energy. I don't care what anybody says, you know, and so trying to be grateful, trying to keep passion, trying to keep it simple. That'd be my biggest piece of advice, you know. A lot of information out there. Soak it up, you know, but don't overdo it. You know, take it all with a grain of salt, right, and ease into things. So, especially if you're new.
Oh yeah, man. Well, I appreciate you having us out, you know, and answering all these questions. You know?
Yeah, bro. Appreciate you, bro.
Yeah, man.
Cool.